Well, John.
Hello, Oliver.
Today we're going to talk about Jacinta Prunty. She wrote a book called Our Lady of Charity in Ireland, and you're going to tell us something about Jacinta and that book that she wrote. It's a rather large book.
It is a large book. It's over 600 pages, and I'm reading it at the moment. It's going to take me a while to read it. And it's about the monasteries, the Magdalene asylums, they're called asylums at that time, and reformatory schools and it says Our Lady of Charity in Ireland. They were nuns that come here 1853 to 1973. So it's spanning over 120 years from 1853. That was just after the famine, and a million had died.
Wow.
So that's when they were asked to come by a priest here in Dublin, because I read some of it, to come to Dublin. She was in Sean McDermott Street, and there was a lot of trouble there, and they came. They had a hard start because the bishop then was not exactly in favour, believe it or not, even though you had the problems of poverty and prostitution and God knows what, because people were starving.
Wow.
Now,
so she wrote, it's 600 pages. Let's find out a little bit more about the author. What kind of person writes a book that has 600 pages?
Yeah, well, she's very well connected as regards her qualifications. She's a doctor, in other words, PhD, she's a doctor. Dr. Jacinta Prunty is head of the Department of History, at Maynooth University in Dublin. In Maynooth, director of the MA, that's the Masters, in Historical Archives, and a member of the editorial board of the Irish Historic Towns Atlas, Royal Irish Academy, a Holy Faith sister. Jacinta has published on the slum geography of 19th century Dublin and the mission of Margaret Aylward, 1810-89, founders of the congregation. Now, so that's Jacinta. She has, the work that she has produced here is the accurate and situation as regards the homes and the refuges that were provided for by the nuns in Ireland when people were in destitute and all the rest of it. They did marvellous work for Jacinta that according to this book, and gives factual accounts of everything, including the Magdalene homes, refuges. That's what they were called when they come first. And then they were called when we were under the British rule when they came, and they came with the help of a particular priest. I think it was Father Smith in Sean McDermott Street, that general area. It was called something else at the time, and he begged and went over and begged, and 5 nuns, I think, came, and they got a hostile reception when they came to the centre in Sean Street. There was a centre there, and so they didn't get such a great start, and the bishop or Archbishop of Dublin didn't seem to be in favour of either. So even though there was this crying out need for help for these destitute people, and the famine had just happened, so they came anyway and they stuck it out, and some Irish people become nuns over in France, and they come back because there was a French connection with the alleviation of suffering that happened in the country with women, and they were at risk particularly. They were often abandoned by their families. They were the business of trying to find food to eat, as we were talking about there about Belgium during the German invasion. They were just as bad. So these nuns provided shelter and food and clothing and education when there was crying out, and they opened various places throughout the country. and then later on Christian Brothers and other ones did it as well. And when we got our freedom in this country over 100 years ago, the authorities at that time wanted them to be called asylums. Now, when a person comes to this country from abroad or any country, they look for political asylum, and so it has that meaning. But with Irish people, the word asylum has a meaning of a mental institution, which they weren't. They were refuges. And then some of them were reformatories where people had committed minor crimes, young people, and they were sent to those to be properly brought up, if you like, because they're in the homes that they were brought up in, and went. So they went to these reformatories, so they all did a lot of good. Obviously, in some places, you get an odd bad apple in any situation that might have not been what they should be, but the overall ethos was good, to give them some Christian and spiritual foundation and a trade or something that they could work at when they become 16 and they were out in the world. They at least had a chance because there's something that they could contribute. And in a lot of cases, the nuns and brothers and priests got jobs for them. And sometimes they were often taken advantage of by the so-called people that was outside, so at least they had a foundation, and some of them emigrated and were great citizens abroad in countries and contributed even to the civilization and the uplift of in the US, even though they were persecuted when they went there by the Protestant ascendancy at that time over there. So what Jacinta Prunty does is defeat the image of what has now been called the Magdalene laundries, women applications. This is in the Catholic Times of this week. Now that's wrong. The business of operating laundries was run by these with the support of the authorities at the time and various other people, because they depended on funds, they depended on donations. There wasn't too much help from the state. They depended on donations and what they could generate by way of income. They would have been doing a lot of sewing and things like that that we don't hear about, but we hear about this Magdalene laundries, but there weren't laundries as such. They had other functions, and this was an offshoot to try and earn income, because there was a lot of laundries when we suddenly were able to sort of afford to go to laundries, because before that people had to use not washing machines, kind of do it themselves. Like in some countries they have poor unfortunate women that have to do it in rivers.
With a washboard.
Well, we used to do with a washboard here, because I remember the washboards. Well, when I was young, washing machines were a very scarce thing, and when they come even in England, they were kind of featured on newsreels and all the rest of it. They were advancing. Don't forget, bicycles were in much use up to the 60s. My father and all the rest of it, there was only a few people had cars. Most of them had bicycles. I had a bicycle, luckily enough, and it wasn't a 3-speed even, it was just an ordinary old bicycle. I had to put a lamp on it. Some of them had a 3-speed and a dynamo. They didn't have to buy a...
Did you have a high Nelly, John, with a big saddle?
No, I had a thing called a hopper.
Hopper?
A hopper, but there was only one gear in it, so you had to hop off when you were up asleep. Maybe that's why it was called a hopper. The rally was the most popular, but in any event, I'm just saying that bicycles is what we had, so you got a lot of exercise. Other poor dippers had to walk, they didn't race to a bicycle. Because bicycles cost a lot of money relative to what your income, because incomes only give people enough to actually feed their family. We weren't a very prosperous country. But we were a very happy country, funny enough, when we had our freedom and things were done in a certain straightforward way, and nobody minded that they didn't have the business of all the benefits that they have now, and they're not a bit happy now, as far as I see. There's the thing about that in the Catholic Church. Now, all I can say is that I was disgusted when I read that, because read that book, and I've suggested that the Canadian born Minister for Children's Sapone. I'd want to read that book before she starts yapping about Tuam and giving people burials. They got proper burials before she ever landed in this country, and they were well looked after. She's not looking after too many abandoned children, as far as I know.
Very good point.
Trying to attack the Catholic faith and undermine it the same as the other elites, and I think they won't succeed, because that book tells the truth. And maybe they can't read, or maybe reading something like this and just sort of
just give us hold it up the front for there so we can see it with the camera. Very good. So, Our Lady of Charity in Ireland, 1853 to 1973, Jacinta Prunty.
It covers the whole period of what has been going on about the homes and the places that was for orphans and all the rest of it. We had a terrible social problem in this country, as they did in other countries. We heard about Romania when they left the communist system, about all the children that was in institutions.
Ceausescu.
And they were kind of nearly not being looked after properly at all. So is this what they want here now? Do they want something like that, the way they're operating with telling lies about what happened in the past? There's no point in talking about the past the way this crowd, this anti-Catholic crowd that's in the government and the media. Them times people didn't have enough to eat. So read that book, and it's a long book, but maybe they're not able to read. But read that book, and you'll get the facts, and then you won't be at this racket looking for compensation when people that were in these places, nobody was going to give them shelter. They could starve on the street.
Thank you very much, John.
Thank you very much, Oliver.